This is Passport to Adventure. Your travel provides an opportunity to have fun, learn, and explore other world cultures. To be open to the possibility that something strange or exciting can happen at any moment. Now here's your Passport to Adventure host, Jim Uszler.
Today we are back in Jerusalem. We will interview one of our tour guides, and that is Ofer, and he's going to answer several of our questions along the way. But as we arrive in Jerusalem, we see a treasure trove of hallowed monuments and sacred legends, where the air is thick with the sounds of prayers and the calls of merchants, and the streets are alive with Jewish, Muslim, and Christian pilgrims eagerly following in the footsteps of early prophets. Following lunch in a local restaurant, we embark on a panoramic tour of the city's most holy sites, including Mount Zion, the traditional Christian site of the Last Supper, and the Mount of Olives, site of Christ's betrayal in the Garden of Gethsemane. Late in the afternoon, we'll check into our hotel and enjoy an orientation walk with our trip leader before dining on our own tonight. For me, it was time for a burger. While the Mediterranean food is healthy and delicious, I just was anxious for a taste of home. Our discoveries in Jerusalem begin early the next day with an extensive walking tour through the Old City. Though it occupies an area of less than 1 square mile, this ancient enclave's history and spiritual significance to Christians, Jews, and Muslims alike is immense. Our tour begins in the Jewish quarter, round the Western Wall, which is adjacent to the site of Solomon's first temple and the second temple. Our tour also included a visit to the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, built around what is believed to be the site of Christ's burial and resurrection, and along the Via Dolorosa, the ancient Way of the Sorrows, where it is traditionally held that Christ walked to his crucifixion. After strolling the winding streets of Jerusalem's Arab and Christian quarters, we stopped for lunch at a restaurant in the Old City before returning to our hotel. I want to thank all of you for joining us today on Passport to Adventure on Huntley Community Radio 101.5 FM, and thanks to Huntley Travel for supporting us. We are traveling in Israel, so let's continue. This morning we visit the City of David, an archaeological park whose ruins shed light on the establishment of Israel under King David in 1004 BC and the history of the Jews during biblical times. A highlight of the site is an ancient 1,500-foot-long water tunnel built by King Hezekiah in 701 BC to protect Jerusalem's water source from invading Assyrians. Our tour concludes at the Davidson Center, where we view a virtual reality reconstruction of the Herodian Temple Mount as it stood prior to its destruction. We discovered another side of Jerusalem during a visit to Machane Yehuda Market, a popular local shopping spot filled with vendors selling everything from baked goods and spices to housewares and textiles. The balance of the afternoon is ours to further explore the Old City, perhaps taking a stroll through the Armenian Quarter, home to the oldest remaining diaspora community outside of Armenia. The next morning we set off on a 2-hour drive along the Dead Sea to Masada, an ancient fortification perched atop a rocky plateau near the Judean desert. Originally built by Herod the Great, the Roman-appointed king of Judea, as a personal refuge, the site was eventually taken over by the Jews during their revolt against the Romans. In retaliation, Roman forces laid siege to the fortress and began to penetrate the walls. Rather than die at the hands of their oppressors, the Jewish military and civilians inside committed suicide. A cable car transported us to the top, where we walk among 20 acres of ruins and learn more about the great battle that was waged here. Of course, if you prefer to hike up to Masada, you can always attempt it, but it is quite steep. A better choice, but one we did not do, was to hike down the trails, and many younger people chose to do that. The next day, we traveled to Yad Vashem, the stirring, everlasting memorial to the more than 6 million Jewish victims of the Holocaust. With the world's largest archives of material relating to the Holocaust, more than 50 million documents and artifacts, this museum and memorial complex, while built on the Mount of Remembrance, aims not only to remember, but to educate. You'll spend the morning at this solemn site learning about the horrors of Hitler's final solution. You may even have the chance to hear a moving first-person account from a Holocaust survivor, as we did. And on our last day, we begin with a moving visit to Jerusalem's 9/11 Living Memorial Plaza. Here you'll see a waving American flag monument built from remnants of the Twin Towers to honor the men and women who lost their lives on September 11th, 2001. Our discoveries in Jerusalem continue at the Israel Museum. Here we see the expansive model of Jerusalem from the Second Temple period. We also take a close look at the Dead Sea Scrolls, which are housed in a wing called the Shrine of the Book. The top of the shrine was designed to look like the clay pot in which the scrolls were originally found. We return to our hotel that afternoon, and in the evening we reminisce about our discoveries with our fellow travelers during a farewell dinner at a local restaurant. And then the next day we depart for the USA. Well, in a moment, I'm going to talk to our Israel tour guide, and his name is Ofer Moghadam, and I've got a few questions for him. So if you'll bear with me, I will get that all ready for you. So, Ofer, I understand you were once in the diamond business. I believe you said sales. What was the reason you became a tour guide in Israel?
So yes, I was in the diamond business in the U.S., selling wholesale diamonds to retail jewelry stores all across the U.S. At a certain point in time, I felt that my heart is not in it anymore. And since this was a family business, which I believed that I would be sucked into back again, I just decided to leave it and leave the country, leave the U.S. as well. In Israel, I tried a couple of things in the internet world, which I was eventually quite successful at. I was selling car parts online, making good money with e-commerce. But also here I felt that my heart is not in it. I was looking for something else, and then just by chance I came across some information online about this tour guide course. And I just decided that I want to try it. It sounded like an interesting thing to me. There were classes twice a week in the evening, and there was a field trip once a week. So it looked like it's something that I could manage while continuing my job. And it took about 1 year for me to understand that this tour guide course is so difficult and so demanding that I simply cannot do both, have a job or have my business and do the tour guide course at the same time. So I sat with myself and I thought, what is it that I really, really want? And I decided that I really enjoy learning about the country of Israel, about the history of all these religions, that I'm going to sell my business and that I'm going to continue for the next year just learning, just studying in the tour guide course. And this is what I did. Eventually I finished. I passed all the exams. And then I said to myself, well, now I went through all of this, might as well try to guide a group or two. And this was 5 years ago. Still doing it, still enjoying it, still love showing the secrets and the history of this country to tourists from abroad.
I wonder if you could repeat again how long you've been a tour guide and what do you enjoy doing with the groups that you lead?
So I've been a tour guide for about 5 years. And for me, actually, this is surprisingly the best job in the world, as it turns out. Everybody enjoys what I'm doing, and I enjoy what I'm doing. So the way I would describe what I really enjoy about my job is that I can show the real Israel, the real country. Because, of course, Israel is in the news all the time and not always for good reasons. Meaning that many times what you hear in the media about Israel is terrorism, is wars, is security problems. And yes, we have those, but this is really just one aspect of life here. So I do enjoy specifically seeing the look on people's faces once they understand that this is a normal country, a beautiful country with open-minded people, that there's many, many aspects, many different cultures, many different religions, many minorities in this country. It is a Jewish country, but there's other religions here, and they all live freely together in this small country. Of course, I also enjoy showing nature. I love hiking. I love walking around in the desert. I do enjoy also hiking in the north in the Golan Heights, which is the complete opposite of the desert. Most people don't think that Israel is very green. And again, it's nice to see how I can create a surprising look on their face once I show them the green pastures of the Golan Heights. And of course, I really enjoy guiding Christian groups here in this country, to walk with them in the footsteps of Jesus and to understand what it means for pilgrims to come here and experience that fills me really with a sense of purpose.
Well, thanks. I wonder if you've had any unusual experiences working with hotels or bus companies as you are leading your tours. So, of course, the more I guide, the more experiences or unusual experiences I have. But I have to say, unfortunately, they're of the unpleasant kind, meaning that the experiences that are unusual is that people don't do their job sometimes, as in bus drivers don't listen to me. They don't drive the route that I tell them to do. They don't stop where I tell them to stop. They have a mind of their own. So that's one thing that is a big issue. Can be, but doesn't have to be. But sometimes it happens that the bus driver is just not in tune with what I want. And of course, hotels. Sometimes we do have the issue of service not being what Americans expect. Maybe it's also worthwhile noting that the room sizes and basically the hotel sizes are not what people are accustomed to in the U.S. It's a small country, and everything is just smaller, especially in the big cities, especially in Tel Aviv. You know, when you want to stay in a very central location, that piece of real estate comes at a premium. So, of course, the builders of the hotel try to take advantage of every little last square inch, and they just build small hotel rooms. But again, the advantage is that you are in a very central location. Now we're going to get into something a little bit more personal with you, if you would. I wonder if you had an opportunity to go on a tour to any country in the world, where would it be and what would you like to see?
So I'm actually currently planning to go to Ethiopia. I hope it will materialize. The hope is that this will happen in January of 2020. As it happens, we do have about 140,000 people of Ethiopian ancestry, Jewish people living here in Israel. They came in what we call in the Aliyah. Aliyah means immigration to Israel for Jewish people. So They came in several big waves in the 90s, and they are today, of course, regular Israeli citizens. So where I live, there is a absorption home for Ethiopian immigrants, not too far from my house. So I do know some Ethiopian people. I smell the food that they smell, and I talk to them about their country, and it just awakened my interest. So I started to poke around on the internet and understand that it's not just an interesting country, but a beautiful country with beautiful places to hike in. And of course, it's about 60% Christian, and they are Orthodox Christian. And being a tour guide, I'm always interested in religion, so it's also one aspect of the country of Ethiopia that I want to go and visit, meaning all these old monastery and churches. So I think all in all, it's not too far from Israel. It's about a couple of hours flight. A flight costs about $450, which is still doable. And then hopefully by January 2020, this dream of mine will really materialize to finally go and visit the continent of Africa, which I've never been to. So it's going to be a first.
Sounds interesting. And, of course, we've traveled to Israel. We love the country. It was a fascinating experience. Why do you think people should travel to Israel?
Why should you not travel to Israel? That is the question, or that should be the question. Israel is, first of all, the land of the Bible. Anybody who has ever read the Bible must come here to understand what the Bible is all about. Reading the Bible without visiting this country is only doing half the job. But you don't have to come here just when you are, if you are a religious person or interested in the Bible. You can come here if you love nature. You can come here if you love history, because of course Israel is the crucible of history. It is what I call the Grand Central Station of the Middle East. There's so many peoples and dynasties and conquerors who came through here. They all left their mark, so it's something that is very hard to find in any other country in the world. And last but not least, the people. Israelis are extremely friendly. Israelis are a mix of all sorts of cultures, religions, colors, races. Jews come from all over the world, and they have made Israel their home. And of course, we have a sizable Arab minority, and then we have all sorts of smaller minorities here. They all live together, and it's a wonderful thing to come and see this mixture and how it all materializes here in this country of Israel.
And what do you think should not be missed when they come to Tel Aviv or to Jerusalem? What experience should not be skipped?
So when you come to Tel Aviv, of course, you have to go and see where it all began. And it really all began in Jaffa, which nowadays is a neighborhood of Tel Aviv. Jaffa is a very old port town that is already mentioned in the Bible. It is said that King Solomon imported his cedar wood for the building of his first temple through the port of Jaffa. And of course, we have a very strong Christian aspect in Jaffa because Peter came and stayed over there, as mentioned by the New Testament. So this is something that for sure you should not miss. Another thing you should not miss in Tel Aviv is the neighborhood of Neve Tzedek. It is really the first Jewish neighborhood that was built outside of the city walls of Jaffa. It is nowadays a very cool place, a hip place. It has a village feel, but it still is in the middle of the city, so that's something very unusual. And just to walk around there and hang out and have a cup of coffee in a cafe, that's the kind of thing that you do in Neve Tzedek. And of course, you have to go to Rothschild Boulevard, which is the beating heart of the city of Tel Aviv. Everybody walks around there, walking around with their dog, see and be seen. That's the motto of Rothschild Boulevard. And of course, once you're there, you will see some of the Bauhaus architecture, because part of Rothschild Boulevard is located in what we call the White City, which is the biggest collection of Bauhaus-style buildings, or international-style buildings, as it's also called, anywhere in the world. These are the things that I would suggest people visit in Tel Aviv. When it comes to Jerusalem, you definitely have to visit the Old City, of course. But before you do that, I highly recommend visiting the Mount of Olives. There's a very well-known lookout point from which you see the entire city. So this is where I would start, and then I would just walk down the Mount of Olives. Once you're visiting the Old City, you must, of course, visit the Western Wall, which is the most important place for the Jews. You must, of course, visit the Church of the Holy Sepulchre, which is the most important place for a majority of Christianity. And if you're there on the right day and at the right time, you must, of course, also enter the Temple Mount, which is the third holiest mosque in Islam, and which is the place where Jews believe that their temple, the first and second temple, used to stand before it was destroyed. Okay, so this is definitely something you need to visit. And after you have done all that, you should go and visit the modern market, the Machane Yehuda market, which is in the western part of the city. And there you don't just go and buy vegetables, because after hours all of this changes and the bars open right there where the vegetable vendors used to sell during the day. So it's a hangout place. It's a very nice place to go and have a beer after you have visited the Old City.
Well, thanks so much, Ofer, for being our fabulous tour guide in Israel. And thanks for visiting us on our program today, Passport to Adventure, on 101.5 FM, Huntley Community Radio. Now, before we go, I do want to add a few things about Israel, some practical data that you might be interested in. First of all, when packing for a trip to Israel, be sure to take the country's climate into consideration. Although most of the year, April through October, it's very warm and sunny, in winter, November through March, it can be somewhat cold, especially in the mountains and at night. Winter is also the rainy season, so make sure to bring rain gear. Some other practical clothing tips: bring a head covering and sunglasses for touring under the sun. Comfortable shoes, of course, are always a good idea. And you will also need modest clothing and often a head covering for visiting the holy places, since shorts and sleeveless dresses are not permitted when entering those sites. Of course, Israel's official languages are Hebrew and Arabic. English is the main language for purposes of external relations, however, so you can get along pretty well. Most Israelis speak English, and most of the signposts are also in English. The time difference, well, Israel is approximately 2 hours ahead of Greenwich Mean Time, but 7 hours ahead of Eastern Standard Time. In terms of health regulations, you don't need any special vaccinations or anything like that. Visitors entering Israel are not required to undergo vaccinations prior to their arrival. As in all countries, there are limitations to bringing animals into Israel. All right, the state of Israel's currency is the new Israel shekel, or shekel, as some people say, Hebrew shekels in English, I don't know. Electric current, that's something that you need to check out. Their electricity is 220 volts, though in major hotel rooms there is usually a built-in 110-volt outlet for electric razors. Credit cards, most shops will take credit cards and handle that for you. I'm going to go into a few interesting facts here that I did not know. Israel is among the 10 leading countries in life expectancy in the world with an average of 83 years. That's pretty interesting. Israel's population is 1.6% of the Middle East, and its land area is only 1/10 of 1% of the region's land area. The most popular sport in Israel is called matkat, or beach tennis. Some of the things invented in Israel: the USB stick, IM technology, antivirus, original cell phone technology, the pill cam, solar energy water heaters, smart drip and micro irrigation, painless hair removal, anti-jellyfish sting gel, laser keyboards, unmanned flight technology, cherry tomatoes, gesture control, and hands-free computers. Those are some interesting inventions of the Israelis. Just a few globally successful companies that started in Israel: Waze, W-A-Z-E, Fiverr, SodaStream, Mobileye, and Get Taxi. According to Traveler's Digest, Tel Aviv is among the top 10 cities with the world's most beautiful women and good-looking men. I don't know where Traveler's Digest comes off making those determinations, but that's what they said. So there you go. Thanks again for listening to our Passport to Adventure on Israel, and we hope you will join us again next week for another Passport to Adventure.
This has been your Passport to Adventure. Your travel provides the opportunity to have fun, learn, and explore other world cultures. Your adventure begins when you